What is unconditional love? And how does life call you forward to express that unconditional love? Today's guest, Erica Baccus, faced that very question as she kept her promise to help her partner of 41 years to end his life with dignity when he found out he had Alzheimer's and dementia. Join us for this beautiful conversation, this story of love, and have your heart opened to the power of love.
Soul Nectar Show, the Soul Nectar Show. You're invited, delighted to discover who you are. Anything is possible if you believe. So join us on this beautiful journey. Soul Nectar Show. Soul Nectar Show.
Well, hello and welcome to another episode of Soul Nectar Show, that show where we talk about all things essence, where we gather around the campfire and share our stories of connection to that which is greater than us, to the big mystery beyond the veil, to those synchronistic moments that lead us inexorably to a deeper understanding of ourselves as human beings on this blue dot floating in a sea of stars. And how do we understand love, connection, humanity, relationship, family, and what does it mean to love someone? What does it mean to deeply honor the one you've chosen to spend your life with? What does that mean? And how can we be in respect and honor of each person's journey through life? Because every one of us has a soul and a journey and a life plan, and we're here to love each other. We're here to love ourselves, and hopefully here to figure out how to do all of that in right relationship. And sometimes love calls us up to make the most difficult decisions, the most challenging sacrifices, what really feels like a sacrifice. We're called up to make that in honor of the love. And how many times have we called up to really be in commitment through some challenges and some difficult situations with the people that we hold the closest and the dearest to us? And that's just such a beautiful journey of self-discovery when we really lean into it and we don't step over it, but we actually really feel it, and we move through the difficult moments and the difficult decisions and things that are going to change our life forever. And sometimes even saying yes to love will change your life forever in ways you never expected. And so we're going to hear a little bit about all of this today. It's just really such a beautiful gift, this woman sitting here with me, Erica Baccus. Welcome, Erica.
Thank you.
She is a caregiver, a widow, and a lived experience expert on end-of-life autonomy for dementia. And she's written a new memoir called A Promise Kept, Honoring His Wishes, Embracing Our Love. It's a clear-eyed account of honoring her husband John's self-determined end while navigating the legal maze that forced their hand. There's so much in the right to die bureaucracy in the United States and navigating dementia, which can be a catch-22 because it's not treated the same way as other debilitating diseases. And so, how do you handle your loved one's humane, dignified end of their life while you love them to pieces, literally, and don't want them to go? And so this is what we're going to talk about today. Erica, you've written such a beautiful book. You guys used to read this book just because it's such a beautiful love story. And it's navigating difficult terrain, but I feel like it opens us up to what is love really? What really is love? Because we can have the highs and the lows and the beautiful moments. We can travel, we can be romantic, we can, all the wonderful things that we think of as love, as romantic love, but then true, deep love, right? Honoring that partner of 41 years in his choice. And so I want to tell you, thank you for your book. Thank you for your transparency and your sharing of your heart and the love that you have. And I love that at the very end of the book, I guess I'm giving something away that's really precious, but at the very end of the book, there's a code QR code, and you can open up a Vimeo of John from his own words, speaking his own perspective. And this man you've been reading about for, however many pages, 200 pages, all of a sudden there he is. So it's a beautiful gift, that book, and very thoughtful and loving and kind. And so I want to honor you for that and for giving such a gift to everybody.
Thank you so much. That video at the end, I recorded that in our backyard, and I'm so grateful that I did it because I have listened to it over and over and over again. And I get to recall the memory of him speaking to me. And he was so sweet, the way some of the things that he said.
You know, when we first talked, you said that I hadn't read the book yet. We were just connecting and to do an interview. And you were talking about how your book included the story of your love in it because you felt like it was important for people to understand the kind of relationship that you had. And I think that's so true. You know, you really painted a picture of the intimacy that you both shared and the fun and the adventure that you want to share any little bit about that, about what kind of relationship you had?
Well, sure. John and I were married for 41 years. It was our second marriage for both of us. And he had one biological son and a stepdaughter with whom he is so exceedingly close to. She's really a daughter. And I have a son, about my own biological son. And we blended families and we had what I call a magical marriage. And I tried really hard in the book to not paint it like we were some mysterious, angelic people. I wanted it to be real. And there are flaws in there. I mean, we hurt each other at times, and we struggled in the beginning of our marriage where we had to learn to say, I'm sorry. We had to learn how he argued and how I argued and what were our buttons. And so we went through all of those things. I was 38, he was 36 when we got married. And there were a lot of lessons to be learned. But at the bottom of it all was we so were grateful for the marriage that we had, that we both wanted to take care of it, and that we paid attention to our marriage. And we got married we had a very small home in San Jose, California when we got married. We got married in our living room. And when we were living in that house, if we had a discussion that we had to have, I would take him to the living room and stand on that spot and say, John, this is where we made our vows. This is where I said, I give you my love. I give you my friendship. I give you me. And he said almost the exact same thing without me knowing that's what he was going to say as his vows. But we went right back to that spot and said, this is where it happened. This is where we committed to each other. And we kept recommitting and recommitting in a variety of different ways. And we just had a lot of fun. It was the life that we had together. We had a lot of friends and we were very social. John was a very gregarious, fun-loving person. And I sort of like social things, but we spent a lot of time just he and I. Those were the best times.
Yeah. And I told you when we met the first time that he kind of reminded me of my father, because my father was also one of those like really gregarious, like fun-loving, funny guys, you know, that people would just gravitate to, you know, like he would just walk into a place and people would gravitate to him. And if there were any dogs in the house, they would be on him. He was that guy.
Animals and kids.
Yeah. They just pile on. So yeah, it's just fun when you have somebody like that. And there's such a rock of love. And you don't realize like how much they did until they're gone. You know, it's like, it's a beautiful person, you know, and it's somebody that you could really appreciate, not to throw anybody under the bus, but like just from our first marriages usually are so rocky and challenging because I think for me, because we have such high expectations about what it's supposed to be, it's all built up and then it ends up being a lot of work and it's challenging, right? And it's that karma marriage. It's that challenging relationship that calls you up in all your stuff to see like where your stuff's at. And it's like, in a way, like for me, the second marriage, and I felt like it was when I was reading your book, I was like, oh, it feels similar. It's like that second marriage where you each know your stuff. You've learned what your stuff is.
Yeah. And there's a commitment, or at least I felt a very strong commitment to commitment.
And working it out, right? And finding ways to treat each other with love and kindness. And I love your stories about all the hiking that you did. And
I can tell a little bit about that if you'd like to. So I came to California from Chicago and had never seen a mountain, didn't know what a backpack was or a sleeping bag. I was a city girl. And when I moved here, one of the reasons I moved here was because I wanted to be in the outdoors. And a friend had taken me backpacking once in Yosemite, and I just fell in love with Yosemite. I fell in love with hiking and being outside. And in those days, and I'm talking about the late 70s, early 80s, in those days, you could go hiking and backpacking in Yosemite and not see a single soul. Today, you have to have reservations and you have to wait, and it's crowded. But we could just walk up to a ranger station and say, I want a wilderness pass. So when John and I started dating, I said to him one day, I'm going to go backpacking for my summer vacation. Do you want to go with me? And he said, sure. Where do you want to go? And I said, I don't know. And I got a big map out, put it on the kitchen table, closed my eyes, and he pointed, and it landed on Yosemite. And I thought, that's amazing. So he said, okay. And he had never been backpacking, and he's a California native. So believe it or not, I went to a junior college and took a class in backpacking. So we would know what to do. And the best thing about it was we got this list of all the things that you need to have with you when you go backpacking and all the kinds of food. And so we got all the equipment that we had to have, and we got all the food, and we went on this first backpacking trip. It was new in our relationship. So backpacking is hard.
Mm-hmm.
So in a way, you get to see what each other is like. And he found out how much I loved nature, and he loved that I loved nature because so did he. And we went on these trips almost every weekend in the summer. We backpacked all over Yosemite, and there were so many different adventures. There were bear adventures and getting lost adventures, and there were just all kinds of things. And it was always like, I always felt so safe because I was with John. It was romantic. You couldn't get any more romantic than being in these gorgeous mountains with Half Dome around the corner from you and the stars that come out at night. And because there are no city lights, and John was a fisherman, and he liked to fish for trout, and I like to eat it. So
that works out.
And I like to read, so I would be able to read on a rock in the afternoon while he was fishing. And there were no personality problems that we discovered. It was just perfect for us. And we decided that this was our thing. And no matter who we told about it, they say, oh, we should go backpacking together. We said, no, it's okay. We're fine. We can do this alone. One time we invited my niece to go, who was in high school, and she had no one to take her, and she loved the outdoors, and we knew that. She actually is a PhD biologist now, and she wrote her college essay about her trip with us. So I felt really good about taking her because we opened up that world to her. But she was the only person in all those years of backpacking that came with us. I eventually had to give it up. When I had my first hip replacement, they wouldn't let me carry the weight on my back anymore and climb mountains. But we went day camping after that, which was different, but we still had a really good time. So, yeah, it was some of our best memories. And also, I'm a little bit of a photographer, so I had an opportunity to take some amazing pictures of the scenery.
What's beautiful to me is when I hear you saying that, the language I would use to describe what you're doing with your partner was creating sacred time that was just the two of you. And just creating that, like, this is our story, our connection, our memories that nobody else. It's like holding it very precious and sacred and not letting the energy of it like leak out a lot of places, So that's really gorgeous. And that builds that intimacy and that connection and that precious sacredness. I don't even know what else to call it between the two of you. And
the thing is that people should understand is that these weekends, our children were not with us. So we weren't leaving them alone or telling them they couldn't come or anything like that. Well, I had plenty of camping trips with the kids. That was another thing that we did quite routinely.
Yeah, that family time, spending time as a family and in nature is nothing like it. That all makes it very challenging later in your life, and and think it was like just a few years back that John started experiencing some forgetfulness, right? And you were talking about how you weren't looking at it because it was like, oh, well, he just forgot a little something.
It started in 2017, and we were in Europe. We were actually in Vienna when I first noticed that he was having some issues. John was a very good map reader, and I always was in awe of it because I don't know how to read a map. And he was not interested in technology. So rather than using an iPhone to get directions, he wanted to use a paper map. And we had been out touring the city of Vienna and needed to get back to our hotel. And he was standing there and kept turning the map, 90 degrees at a time. And I said, what's wrong? And he said, nothing's wrong, nothing's wrong. And I said, well, can I help you? No, I'm fine. And the more I asked, the more agitated he became until he got pretty angry, which was so weird because that wasn't his typical behavior. And finally, I had to get out my iPhone and get our walking directions back to the hotel. When we got back there, I was talking to him and I realized he didn't remember what we did the day before. And I also started to notice that he couldn't remember what I told him we were going to do the next day or the next day. I thought, this is so odd. And I was worried. But then I said, I'm on vacation, not going to worry about it now. I can put it aside here. And we went on and things were fine. We got home and he went right back to normal. And I thought, that was all so odd. And I thought, well, maybe we were in a strange place and something was going on. So anyhow, we let it go. And then 2018 rolls around and he still seems pretty fine. 2019 comes and he is getting more forgetful and things are starting to be noticeable. And we had a primary care appointment and we were both at this appointment. And unbeknownst to me, he had planned to ask the primary care doctor a question about his memory. And he told the doctor, he said, I'm really concerned about my memory. Because I had said to him, oh, don't worry about it, Joan. We all forget things like that. I can't remember the movie we saw last week, It's just our age. And the primary care doctor put him through that standard test that they have. Count backwards from 10, spell work backwards, a bunch of things. And I was doing the questions in my head as he was answering them. And he did better than I did. So again, we thought, well, I guess he's okay. And the doctor said, you seem fine to me, but I will put a referral in your chart for UCSF Memory Clinic, Aging and Memory Center, where patients at University of California, San Francisco, which is one of the best hospital systems in the country. So that was somewhere early 2019, in 2019. And I have a sister who's a nurse and she's married to a doctor. And I had been telling her, I'm a little worried about John and his memory and he's worried about it. And she said, Erica, it's probably okay. But if you're seriously concerned, you should go to a neurologist because the sooner you catch Alzheimer's, the better it is because they do have drugs now that can slow down the disease. So I talked to John about it and I made the appointment. It was January 24th, 2020. And prior to the appointment, he had to have a brain scan, an MRI of his brain. And when we went to that appointment in 2020, the year that was, it was 8 hours of interviews and tests and all this stuff. At the end of the 8 hours, they interviewed me, they interviewed John. It was a whole very thorough day of exams. They brought us into a conference room and there were 5 doctors there. And on the screen above us was the images of John's brain. And they explained, if you look at those images, you could see gray parts of his hippocampus, which shows where the atrophy is. And they said that he had early cognitive impairment consistent with Alzheimer's. So basically what they were saying is he was in the early stages of Alzheimer's. So that was 2020 when we got the professional diagnosis.
Yeah, and that's That's a pretty crushing moment of realizing that he's on a journey that doesn't end well, for anyone, pretty much.
What I say about Alzheimer's is there's no hope. If you have cancer, there's hope. You can get radiation, you have surgery, you have chemotherapy, immunotherapy, and there's a lot of success now with different kinds of cancers and catching it early and so on. There is zero hope with Alzheimer's. There is only one end. Well, now there's two ends, but there's only one direction that you're going.
Yeah. And I think when you realize that, and when your husband realized that, he decided he didn't want to go all the way to the end of that story, that he wanted to have some autonomy with his choice and how he wanted to end his life. And if life is a ceremony, I like to think of life as a ceremony that gives us the sovereignty to choose the end of our ceremony. It's like, how do I want my ceremony to go? And when I've lived a really good life and I'm happy, and that video that we were talking about, he expresses that I lived a great life. I'm happy with my life. I had wonderful experiences. I had a wonderful partner, wonderful family. I feel complete and I'm ready for my ceremony to end. And that's a self-responsible choice that's made with his full cognitive awareness in those moments that he was still able to have that.
Yeah.
That's really powerful, the journey that you took with him to support him in his choice. And also, I know you had to hold space for family. You had to hold space for yourself through that choice. And that must have been very challenging, very difficult for you to hold that space.
When I look back on it, it's all like, who was that person? It's sort of like, I don't know how I did what I did. I must have compartmentalized incredibly well. First of all, there's three things I should say here. Number one, there are 11 states plus the District of Columbia that have end-of-life option acts, which say that if you are terminally ill and a doctor says you're going to die within 6 months and you have mental capacity to make a decision on your own and you know what kind of decision you're making, you can end your life with medical assistance legally. However, that law negates anybody with dementia because, number one, nobody can predict how long a dementia patient's going to live. And if you were to get to 6 months before you die, you will not have mental capacity. You will not be able to make a decision on your own. You will not know what you are doing. So there's no way in the United States that you can legally end your life on your own terms if you have a neurodegenerative disease. That's one thing. The other thing I'll say is that my mother had early onset Alzheimer's. So I had an idea of what Alzheimer's looked like. And I had talked to John about it over the course of our marriage. And we both agreed that neither one of us wanted to live in a state where we had no capacity to be the human beings we felt we were. When your brain starts to become dysfunctional and you no longer can function as the human being that you are, John believed very, very strongly that he did not want to be here. And so when he came to me after the diagnosis and said, I want to die, I do not want to live with this, it was not a surprise. It was a shock, but it was not a surprise. And for the first 2 years, we had no option other than live through it like most people do. He talked about all different kinds of suicide, that he wanted to die by suicide, hanging, shooting, jumping off the Golden Gate Bridge, all kinds of things. And none of them were 100%. Some of them would wind up being worse than if he did nothing. So that was sort of set aside until I found the place in Switzerland where it is legal to go to do this. But the important thing was John's choice was totally consistent with whom he was as a human being. It is who John was. He said, if I can't give, I don't want to be here. I'm taking up space on earth that I don't want to take up. If my brain doesn't function, I am not a person and I don't want to be here. And he truly believed that. And it was way more powerful than any fear of death he could have possibly had. So when he came to me, when I finally found Dignitas in Switzerland, and when I finally told him about it, he said, okay, let's do this. And I said, okay. And throughout the process, he would say to me, Erica, are you okay with this? Are you okay with this? And I would say to him, John, this is your life. It is your choice. I cannot tell you what to do with your life. And I knew that had I said, please don't, he wouldn't have. And then I would have had to live with the guilt of forcing this beautiful man to live in a situation that he did not want to live in. Mm. And I do believe that we each have the right to choose our own path. And we had a marriage based on independence. We had a marriage that we believed that we each had the right to be who we were. And so this was just the continuation of that belief system that gave us so much love in our marriage. And so as hard as it was for me to keep saying, this is your life, John, you get to choose, I had no choice but to say those words.
That's such a powerful story of unconditional love and sacred witnessing. I call it sacred witnessing when we are able to be so clear and present with someone else and what they are feeling and going through, and honoring their choices and their words as part of their dream of life. And when we are in direct relationship with someone, there's that, like, where our needs are being met by that person being who they are. And so, like, they're going to be gone. You know, as a result of following his wishes, he's going to be gone. But the strength that you had in your love to be able to be his sacred witness and be his ally in what he chose without inserting your needs on him in his dream. What a powerful act of love that I want to honor in you.
Thank you. So going to Dignitas in Switzerland is not an easy thing to do. It took me 7 months to provide all the documentation and all the necessary paperwork and all the different requirements for them before he got an approval to go there. They're very strict and very rigorous about accepting you to come there. And so I had to do all that because John was not capable of doing that. And I had to choose the date when he would die. I had to make plans for us to go to Switzerland. I had to figure out who was going to come to Switzerland with us, if anyone. So many decisions had to be made. And while John could not do some of the tasks, he could still discuss the decisions with me. And he still had opinions about some of the decisions. Not all of them, but some of them. And so he was involved to the extent that he could be involved. But I just forged ahead. And I would tell him all the time, this is what's happening. This is what we're doing. And we would wait for approval every time you send something into Dignitas. Then you wait for an approval for the next step. I waited for approvals that I didn't want to get.
Exactly. That's a hard thing. And I know that it's so tender because you're in a partnership with somebody for 41 years. Like, they're your person. Mm-hmm. That's your person.
It's
you know?
My person.
Yeah. And I've watched my mom go through this, as you know. And so not in the same situation, but my dad just had a freak lung thing. And then all of a sudden he was gone after years of thinking he was going to die from leukemia. And then that never took hold. And then all of a sudden he's out, and it's like, what just happened? And all of us were just in shock, but I think however it happens, my mom was always holding space for him because we all thought he was going to die anyway, so we were all like wondering how to help him, support him in his conclusion of his life, right? We did all this big work because of the illness and then it ended up not being that, but being something else. But I think even though it's going to happen, you can't prepare, as you were saying near the end of your book. You might know it's going to happen. Like, you might even be prepared. Is you're not prepared. There's no way you can prepare for the loss of your partner.
There's no way to prepare. I knew it was going to happen. And I knew, there was a countdown, 22 days from now, John will be dead. That sort of thing went on in my head. But there's no way to prepare for how you're going to feel afterwards. I mean, what I went through afterwards was just overwhelming grief. And it's sort of like, and other widows I know feel the same way. It's not that you just lost your husband, but you've lost your life, the life that you knew for 41 years. So you mourn that along with losing your person. But my grief was complicated by the fact that I felt at times afterwards that I did this to him, that I orchestrated it all. And then when I first came back from Switzerland, I said, I murdered my husband, which was totally irrational. And it's actually the reason I started writing was because I went back to look at my notes because I was overwhelmed with thinking, did I push him into this? Should I have objected? Did he feel like I wanted him to die, that he was going to be a burden to me, so I wanted him out of here? I mean, I just went round and round with all of these things. And then when I would read my journal notes where it said, John said to me, Erica, shoot me now, shoot me. Erica, I can't stand this. I'm in suffering. I can't stand it anymore. Because he had side effects from different things that you get with Alzheimer's, and everybody gets different side effects. So I started to realize that it grounded me more in reality, and I started to write the actual story and turned into a book.
Yeah, and really, thank goodness you took the video of him too, basically just letting you off the hook, saying, hey, I'm happy with my life. I want this. I'm ready to go. That was such a brilliant thing that you did for yourself that you didn't even know you were doing for yourself, but that you can reassure yourself, because the mind plays tricks, it really plays tricks and make you afterwards start doubting yourself and think that you did something wrong or that somehow, you caused it all to happen. And it's like, no, it was the disease. And he chose how he was going to meet that disease. Like that Goliath, he was going to be David. And he's like, no, I'm not going to take this. I am going to slay this dragon, and I'm going to go out on my own terms. And you helped him do that. You helped him to do what he wanted to do.
Exactly. In the video, he says, don't be sad for me. I'm not sad for me. And it's just, you wonder, I mean, he was so brave. He accepted his fate. Not once did John ever say, why me? Not once did he pity himself in any way. He just accepted his fate. Millions of people get Alzheimer's. It was just totally random that he got it. And he took it with courage and grace and love. And we spent as much time as we could with each other, loving each other, and with our family and our grandchildren and our children and our best friends. And we used each day. And I would say to him, today is a gift, John. It's another day we have together. Today is our gift. And we would keep reminding each other. And sometimes he was better at it than I was, and sometimes I was better at it than he was. But we helped each other that way.
Yeah, I like how in the end that you were, the last few months, you were keeping a journal of like, today he's a 5, today he's a 1, and he would rate himself like, I'm a 1, I'm not feeling it today. And I like that you did that for yourself because you had documentation. You could go back and look at it and say, no, he was suffering and this was an act of kindness to honor his wishes, to support you through that challenge. And I'm really glad I know your son was the one who ended up going with you. And I'm really grateful that you had your son. I'm a mom. I have 2 sons. And so I hope one day my sons will be as supportive of me as yours was of you. I mean, what a tremendous gift for him to be there with you.
He was my hero. He still is my hero. What he did for me is one of the greatest acts of kindness I've ever experienced. I should probably explain. It was difficult to decide who was going to go to Switzerland. I believed it was an intimate thing that we were doing and did not want to have a lot of people come. John at one point wanted his son and daughter to come along. We had a disagreement about it because, well, first of all, I said, John, you're asking your children to come once you die. I said, nobody wants to watch you die. I don't want to watch you die. And secondly, I believe that this is between you and me. It's an intimate thing we're doing, and I want to be alone with you. And ultimately, I convinced him of that, but I still needed someone to help me get home. And I went through my head with, all kinds of ideas of who I would ask. Somebody practical who wouldn't be emotional, a friend of his, a friend of mine. And then when my son found out what we were doing, his very first comment was, "Mom, you can't do this alone. I'll go with you." And this was before anyone else knew what we were doing. I said to him, it was just so generous of him. I said, "But you need to think about it because this is not going to be easy. It's going to be really, really hard." He said, "I know." And several times before the actual trip, I asked him again, "Are you okay with this?" And he was. And so he came along with us, and where John died, it was in a house, and there were rooms outside of where we were in different rooms. And he went secluded into another room when it was time for John to die. And afterwards, my body collapsed. I couldn't even walk through the airport. But we were supposed to be leaving that night to go I was going to go back to Chicago to his house with him and my grandchildren and my daughter-in-law. And our flight got canceled.
As it would be.
And I had one foot out of the taxi at the airport where we're getting ready to go back to the United States. John had just died like an hour or so before, 2 hours before. And I'm stepping out of the car when he came around to my door. He said, he's looking at his phone. He says, "Mom, our flight's been canceled." No, that's not possible. Anyhow, we wound up having to spend the night in Switzerland at the airport. And around 2 a.m, he texts me. He was in the room next to me. And he texted me and he said, "Are you awake?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "Do you want me to come there?" And I said, "Yes, please." And he came into my room and I asked him, I said, "Would you lay down with me?" And he did. And he let me put my arm around him and let me feel his body. And my son is a very quiet, thoughtful, and in a way shy person. And for him to have done that, I knew that was an enormous gift that he was giving me. And I fell asleep instantly.
That's such a beautiful story. I mean, your whole story is so touching, and
I'm so blessed to have the people in my life that I have, the care from my sister and brother-in-law and our grandchildren and John's son and daughter. Every time I've ever asked them anything about the whole process, should we do this or do that? It was always, "Whatever you want, Erica, whatever you want. We're here to support you. We love you."
yeah, and it's such a journey too on the other side to find your way again. And I know that in the book you were talking about how like you always believed in science and doctors and like that was like your whole thing, and you were like this whole spirituality thing. I don't know. But there's something about someone passing, right, that really opens it up. Like it's like, oh, I think he's here with me right now. Like, he's talking to me. And it's just like you can't prove anything, but you just know it.
I've had some fascinating visits from John. They're dreams, but they're so alive and so real that I call them visits, and I think other people do too. And I can feel his hands on my body, on the arms. I can conjure him up. He is with me, inside of me. He's part of me. And he's never going to go away. I mean, I don't get to see him physically, but he is with me. And that is a definitely new part of my being.
Yeah. Sometimes I feel like they do like these soul experiences get coordinated so we can wake up to a whole new level of understanding about ourselves as well, and get that experience of, oh, I didn't know that. I was focused here. And now he's with you in another way, and you're getting to experience, oh, he's here this way too. It's a great gift. And it does, for me, lessen the fear of death, It's just a portal. It's a transition.
Religious. Yeah, it's not
religious. Yeah. It's an experience.
And I watched, we cuddled up the way he died. He had to drink this medicine, and within 3 or 4 minutes after drinking it, he was gone. We were cuddled up in bed, and I felt his arm fall off of me and turned and looked, and he was gone. It was peaceful. It was humane. It was fast, and it was painless.
Yeah. And now he's beyond the veil, and I'm sure he's laughing his self silly and having a great time and jovial as he was in the video. So, yeah. And beautiful gift that you gave us all to have this story, that you wrote it for all of those people that are going to go through something similar or they lose someone. I mean, I think I believe we can all learn from the spirit of death so much. I learned how to die while still alive, die to the life I was living, wake up to a new life, wake up every day appreciative of the life that we have, see it through new eyes. And a story like yours really helps us do that, helps us to really appreciate the relationships in our lives and how to make them more special.
I really hope that one of the things people take away from the story is that talking about how you want your life to end is as important as talking about the middle of your life or the beginning of your life. Should we have children? Where should we live? What kind of job should I have? How do I want my life to end? What does it look like? Because it will so smooth the path for you when that end does come. To have some idea of what your wishes are within your family, within your closest friends, so that people understand, I don't want to live with X, whatever that is. Or I do want to live with this. It's an important discussion that we don't like to have in this country.
Yeah, because it's so youth oriented, this idea of like always being young, and youth is great, but wisdom is awesome, and that comes with age. So I'm going for the wisdom here. And I got to say, like, here's my desire. I want to die in a magical way like my dad, where I felt, it actually took a death journey with my dad in my mind. I was curled up next to his bed, and he was psychically connecting with me and remember, because I know it was him because I don't remember all these things he was showing me. He was like, remember when we did this? And remember when we did that? And remember when I took you swimming and I pulled you all around the pool? And remember when I read you bedtime stories? And remember, and he's like, you forgot that? And then what about this? Like I had this whole, like curled up his bedside for 3 hours, drinking with him. And wow, and then he was gone the next morning. My mom was talking with the doctor about how we're going to have to transfer him to the house and how am I going to care for him? He's so big and I don't know. And it was like he heard all that and he just went, and let go. I want to let go gracefully like that with sparkle dust. He literally died with sparkle dust. And then like an hour later, we're all like, or however long it was, I don't know, Ty lost track of time, but we were all gathered around his bed, all my family in the hospital with the priest there, which we're not religious, so they just have somebody come to help you. And the guy's standing there saying whatever words he's saying. And all I can hear in my mind is this thing we used to do at Thanksgiving where we'd all hold hands around the table and then we would shout at the top of our lungs, Grace, just so God could hear it. And all I can hear is my dad shouting, Grace. And I look across to my brother and he heard the same thing. And we're like, and I said, Dad wants us to shout grace right now, but we can't do that. We're in the middle of a hospital where people are dying. So I want to be like that. Like, I want to go out like that. I'm putting my request into the universe.
And mind over matter, right?
So it is. Yeah. And that magical ability that we can open up on the other side of losing somebody we love so much. Because I got to tell you, my dad was my rock of love. And I can talk to him every day now. And I'm so grateful that I have the psychic openness to be able to hear him and feel him and sense him. And I just wish that for everyone and to know that they're right there. They ain't go anywhere. They're just not in a body. But we do love those bodies, though. We like to hug them and squeeze them and see and laugh and see the jelly belly roll around. And my dad had a big old belly. We love that. So thank you for bringing us closer to gratitude and touching the sacred aspects of life and and being a witness and unconditional love and all the things that you are, that you have gone through, that you've walked, that you're an embodiment of, and that you're sharing now with all of us. And I appreciate you so much.
Thank you for having me here and allowing me to tell my story. And you talk about gratitude. Gratitude is the other side of grief for me. When I'm feeling really a lot of grief, I think, but you had 41 magical years. And for that, I'm so grateful.
Yeah, that is a gift. Not everybody gets a great marriage like that. That's one. That's the jackpot.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well, you guys, thank you for staying for the interview, watching it all the way through. And as you always do, and please like, share, subscribe, share this episode out. Erica's book is on Amazon. I just bought it myself this past weekend, walking Kindle. It was great. A Promise Kept, Honoring His Wishes, Embracing Our Love, and Erica Baccus. So the link is in the show notes below if you need the link to find the book. And please check her out and share this episode out with anybody who needs some encouragement right now about end of life and honoring our loved ones' wishes. Thank you so much, Erica, for all you are. If you want to join me, we're going to give kisses, everybody. So here they come. They're just energetic kisses. I promise they don't have any cooties. Maybe a few. We love you so much, everybody. Here come your kisses. And we'll see you next time on Soul Nectar Show. Bye for now, everyone. If you found even one gold nugget in this episode of Soul Nectar Show, will you do us a favor? Will you subscribe, like, and share this episode? Maybe even write a comment and let us know what you thought about it. We really, really want to engage with you at a much deeper level. Let's be part of community together. Have a great week, everyone. Bye for now. To dive in deeper to nourishing conversation, visit soulnectar.show.
Soul Nectar Show. Awaken, awake, show. Take a sip from the drip of nectar, from the source of who you are.